It's the Controller Bob, Captain Joel Show. Controller Bob and Captain Joel Show. Controller Bob and Captain Joel. Controller Bob and Captain Joel Show.
The A minor blues pentatonic scale. She goes, oh, okay. And she walked out the door. I said, the only way you're going to get better is if you start learning the fretboard in theory. Now, I'm not saying I'm any good, please. That ain't even close to real. Anyway, I love doing it.
Sound like you're flying.
I'm no close to doing that either, right? Well, that's evident by the videos we're going to be putting out. Jeez Louise, you know? I'll be always learning. That is true, though. I don't think I've ever flown where I haven't learned something. Do you know
Every
that?
day?
Every day. Learn something.
Let's get there.
Oh, jeez.
All right. Once again, we're back.
Oh, wait, you gotta start the episode. Episode, what are we at now? 5? 4?
It's an
5?
episode.
Wait, it's an episode?
It's an episode.
This is episode XXX
Bob
of Aloha Bob and the Wiener.
and the Wiener.
Is that what we're going to call this thing now?
Aloha Bob
What
and the
have the
Wiener
comments-
is what
All
I'd
right.
like to, but you know,
Really?
it's up to our followers.
Really? Do we have any followers?
2.
2.
Yeah.
I'm your number 1 follower, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. You complete me, by the way.
So, welcome to the show, Aloha Bob and
The Wiener. I'm getting really good at this, aren't I? We gotta work.
you may have a face for radio.
No, I'm just not going to happen. This is TV. Is this really TV or are we on? Is internet? Doesn't matter.
I don't know. The lights are sort of
Hey,
bright.
do you know what your Instagram thing is? The Wiener Man?
The Wiener Man.
W-E-A-N-E-R,
Yeah,
man.
W-E-A-N-E-R.
That's right.
Man.
You might find some interesting video on there.
You might find a video
Actually,
or
very
two.
cool stuff you post, by the way. This is not an ad for your Instagram, but it is pretty cool, though.
You know, we have fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Flying's about having fun.
Right.
So if I go someplace exciting, like our latest job is flying out of Merritt Island, managing an airplane for a doctor, and we get to go to Merritt Island. I don't know, 3 or 4 times a month.
Right. So that's right. That's right.
The last few weeks, Aloha Bob gets to know the air traffic controllers and knows half of them by their first name. And
EA in Orlando, by the way.
And
nice guy.
Yeah. And he says, "Hey, we come out of Cocoa. Can we do the NASA flyby?" He says, "Yeah."
Right.
So we come out of Cocoa Beach, climbed to 1,000 foot, and go over to NASA Tower, and they gave us and I've never had it. They always done 500 foot before, but we got 100 foot. He says, "You're clear down to 100 foot flyby." So we go down to 100 foot.
Yeah.
Down the runway.
Very lucky to live in some of the. There are probably some really cool places in our country. Like Niagara Falls would be something really cool to fly by. I don't know if you can do that or not. If you go
I don't know about the border and what it takes up
flying
there.
over Disney is very cool.
We did that at 10,000 feet 2 days
No,
ago.
but I did that on my cross country, on my VFR cross country over top Disney, which is very cool. There's a TFR over that, but you know.
As long as you're in air traffic control contact, which you are.
That was good, though. But another thing that's really cool is going by the Kennedy Space Center, which we're very lucky to be in that part of the neighborhood. We can actually see that. What an amazing
Oh, it was fun
thing.
because, you know, we flew
Now,
right down and we were
right.
below the building,
Right,
the NASA building.
right.
And
Did it fly by the children? Can you imagine landing that thing from space? That's the most amazing thing.
Well, and if you follow the glide path, he's short final at 5,000 feet.
Yep.
He's coming down like a rock. But
Would it surprise you to know that I had a conversation with a NASA pilot on frequency?
once.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Cross Gulf Mexico, we weren't doing anything. We'll talk about that later. That's episode 6 or
12.
16. That's a teaser for later. I'm all about telling everybody. There's a reason you're going to listen.
All right. So the reason
right.
why we get you and I met is
Right.
you wanted to learn to fly.
That's right.
So we got you your private license, and it's been, what, 2.5 years now?
Almost, it's been 3, actually. 3
Yeah,
since
good,
I got
good,
here.
good times.
Yep.
And you've decided to move forward and get your instrument rating.
Right, because the conversation became, once you got your private pilot's license, and how many people do this? You get your private pilot's license, how often do you plan to fly? That was a big question. It was a passion. I started dreaming about it. It seemed crazy to be just a private pilot's license, and if you're going to do a lot of flying, get the instrument. That was told to me by a controller who was a pilot many years ago, get your instrument because it adds a level of safety to your flying, and you become a better pilot. And it became very apparent halfway through my private pilot stuff with you that I needed to do that. So that's where I thought, okay, get the private pilot, start working on an instrument. But one of the most important things you told me was right after I got my check ride, because that was a big deal when you get your instrument, your private pilot's license. And anybody who gets them, and you'll see those on Facebook, and I always like them when they stand there in front of the airplane with a big smile on their face after they got the check ride, and it's really cool to see that and actually experience it. And I thought, okay, but you told me fly for fun. Take the airplane and go fly. You earned it. Don't start pounding into the books right away and start your instrument. Some people do that, and because they have a goal in mind. But that was a real big deal for me. But instrument flying is where we're at. I found it just like everybody said. You learned a lot. And one of the things I thought, instrument, air traffic control, no problem. I mean, it's no problem because that's all I deal with. Instrument, that's my primary deal. And I found out that probably 90% of the written and the stuff had nothing to do with air traffic. So I thought that was interesting. So, but it's come along great. I'm excited. My scan was terrible, as everybody's scan was.
Yeah, if you don't do it once or twice a month, you try to do it once a week.
Right.
But if you don't do it, it's hard to get back into it and
that's
and
true.
Keep going.
You get rusty. Now here's an interesting thing: is do you know that scan is not just for pilots?
Okay.
You scan. Some people have the G1000s or the glass cockpits, and then of course the 6-packs and stuff like that, which I'm playing with. But the controllers, scanning is very difficult for controllers. So you'll find somebody brand new, they'll sit down and they'll start working, and their scan is terrible. Something happens up on this side of the scope, and they're not paying attention down here, and you got to teach people scan, just like you would in an airplane.
Is that little green light when every time you hit the ident button?
No, yeah, that's right. So you keep pressing the ident. Oh.
Well, okay, go back to your subject.
You want to know what an ident looks like on a radarscope?
Yeah.
It's really anticlimactic. It's going to be a big wah moment for you.
Okay, all right.
It just says ID.
What about when somebody squawks 7600?
That's a problem.
Okay.
It's alarms go off, big beeps when 7700 squawks go off for obvious reasons. They're a big deal.
Right.
7600 in a terminal or an approach control environment, the software will stick a red RF on top of your call sign indicating radio failure because you're squawking 7600. Right. If you squawk 7700, it will come up with a red EM, and it will ring off an alarm as well. It'll beep, you'll hear in the background. If you're flying through and you hear beep, 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 that's a different thing altogether. But this is much more of a crazy beep that will immediately garner a lot of attention. Hey, what's going on with that guy? You'll immediately find out.
Another beep that I've had, and a lot of times you'll hear it while the controller is a low altitude alert.
Low altitude alert.
Explain the low altitude alert.
The software program is designed to where there's terrain and obstruction stuff no matter where you are, and they've programmed into where if you get below a certain altitude, it will trigger off a low altitude alert. This is kind of a subroutine for the programming of the computer that will determine this plane is in proximity, and it will go off and it will give a beep off, and so it will give an alarm on a tag as well, and then you'll have to, if he's on an approach, for example, an instrument approach, if he seems low, like in an ILS. If
he's below the glide slope.
Well, not necessarily glide slope, but I mean really low.
Okay.
It will go off. It will say, hey, you're outside the parameters, and then it will remind him, or whoever's talking to the particular pilot will remind him, hey, you're low altitude, check your altitude type situation. It's up to our discretion to determine whether or not it's appropriate or not. Obviously, it really does help. It's a big deal. So, for example, when we shoot a non-precision approach, there's two schools of thought, right? Dive and drive.
Dive and drive.
Go right down to decision height and then go down there, get down as low as you can, or a steady, constant descent, right? Or a hybrid thereof. What do you like better?
I like a steady descent.
Yeah, I feel
it's a little easier on the passengers.
I feel comfortable doing that. The dive and drive, it seems interesting, but nevertheless, the computer would see the dive and realize he's really low because once you cross the final approach fix, how low can you go on a non-precision approach? You could go right down to minute decision height.
Right.
Right? Immediately.
And you'd still be 3 or 4 miles from the airport.
You still be, and a computer doesn't like that. and it will give a low altitude alert. So that's what the low altitude alert.
Okay.
And then the conflict alert is another one. So these are all these great alarms. You want to talk about having,
Are they different tones or?
The different different tempos, essentially,
Okay.
is what we have. And the conflict alert, you'll hear that very often in the background. You'll hear it go off, and especially when you're giving tours, and it will go off, and people are going, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And it's like,
He's touching me.
and nobody's getting excited. Well, they touch me. So,
Okay.
Nevertheless, but conflict alert is another tool that we use, and can remind somebody, hey, don't forget to reevaluate that particular situation. And a lot of times you've had it resolved, so that it's really not an issue. It sometimes it helps. So those are big deals, like TCAS, which and ADSB nowadays, another beautiful tool. So these are.
The ADSB has helped us a lot in our flights this past week.
Situational awareness for sure.
And we did all our flights this week. We did VFR,
Right.
Because it's just beautiful here in Florida and not a cloud in the sky.
Right.
So,
which is why a ton of training exists in Florida, right?
and
Yeah.
we see a lot of guys out training. And we came. Where'd we go? Merritt Island?
I don't know.
know.
It's all a big blur. We went to some airport.
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
I can't even remember what airplane
We'll
we
call
were
it
in.
something. We'll call it Leadville. All right. See,
Somebody
you
was
picked up
there.
the-
I
you
don't
picked
know who
up
it
the
was.
mug
Yeah.
at Leadville.
I think he ordered it on the internet.
I don't know. Anyway, we were going to the airport. You were saying.
I don't think Mike Zulu made it to Leadville.
What do you think? Do you think he put long-range tanks on 2-3 Mike Zulu?
Well, he did have the wings off.
He did have the wings off, right?
I'm excited to see the new paint job.
I am too. I heard he put hard points so he could put the external tanks on there to get extra range.
yeah.
But that poses another problem.
He's going to have a relief tube. I think that's also
exactly
installed.
what I was going to say, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder if we can get MzeroA relief tubes. We might be able to sell those.
Right?
Yeah.
Merchandising.
Yes. Oh,
Aloha Bob and the Wiener
Yeah,
merchandising.
yeah.
We're just going to bypass MzeroA right
Yeah.
together.
We're going direct to the
That's
source.
right. We got to make some money somehow.
All right. So you did your
Yeah.
instrument. You
Yep.
did your written 2 weeks ago.
Well, a little more than that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did well.
I passed.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And what would you consider to do well? Now, here's another question for you. Some people say 70.00001, perfect. Others say, hey, try to score a big number. When you sit in front of an examiner, your experience, what do you think helps during your
Well,
oral? Because
when-
I'm a little nervous about that.
When you go into a check ride and you meet minimum standards, just meet minimum standards
Right.
on your written, the examiner, and I can only say this from
That's
the
why I asked
outside
you, 'cause
looking
you
in.
got 4 million hours of flying. What are you talking
Well,
about?
I've been through a few
I didn't ask you
I've been
because
through
you
a few
didn't know
check
what you were
rides.
talking about.
You know,
Just answer the question, all right?
if my co-pilot would just shut up.
Answer the question. As your attorney, I'm not an attorney.
What were we talking about?
You're asking
Check
about
rides.
whether or not a score on your.
So if you go in with the minimum of what you have to have, you might have a little more expected of you. But if you go in there with a better than average
Right.
score, and I don't know what the AOPA national average for an instrument check ride.
Make it up.
80.
80.
All right.
Wow, that's really good.
So if you got beyond an 80, obviously you did more than study. You did.
You think
did good.
80 is the number? So you just crushed everybody's soul who shot a 77.
I don't mean to feel bad. Don't get me wrong now.
All right.
Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm just saying. Everybody's okay. So you're listening. You said 80 national average. What do you think?
I'm guessing.
I'm sorry if you shot a 75
That's a
on
question.
your test.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Don't take it again. You did fine.
Yeah.
But you, on the other hand, go ahead. 80.
I feel so guilty now. You
well,
put
you
the guilt
should.
on me.
That's the first time I've made you feel guilty ever in our lives. You know that? Anyway, go ahead. You were saying.
So, if you
back
go
on
in,
subject. Yes.
get back on this topic.
Yes, right. Stop talking.
If you go in with a not very good score, that's why you have to do.
Right.
Your instructor has to go through and
do you think there are
make you
examiners
study
who
on
don't
the
care
items
as long
that
as you passed? But I mean, he has to go through those topics.
you have to go through the topics,
Right.
and the more topics that you have to discuss, the longer your oral may be.
Right. Is that true though? You think is that the advice you would?
That would be the advice that
So study hard.
Yes.
Right.
Learn.
Stare at Jason's beautiful eyes.
Yes.
For hours on end.
And there's things that you need to do.
That's right. Don't forget
Right
to
here.
buy the book. It's in
You
the
need-
below.
you need the book.
Right?
All
Now,
right.
this is the instrument. There's a lot of people who are. He's got the private pilot one too.
Well, we're just.
right,
what are we talking about
have a
right
pen,
now?
I would scratch
what
on
what
this
are we
part right
talking
now.
about right now?
We're talking about my instrument
Yes.
stuff.
And have you read this book?
No, I've never read the book. I haven't taken. It's on
You're
the
not
list.
helping with our merchandising.
It's on the list, all right? I plan it. Okay, so here we go. Let's cry.
All
You know what? No, wait. Hold on a second. Let me. He always puts this book up, right? He goes, look. He gets all serious. And
I think
stuff, right?
I think when we
And
did it
that's
from the
good,
house,
though.
we had this book.
Right, but you know, in here, it's just nothing but blank pages. There's nothing in here.
There's no
when
substance.
you get it in the mail, it'll be blank. This is all just stuff I just threw in there by accident. See, there's nothing really going on. And you know, do you ever go to look at a book and you want to see color pictures in the middle of maybe the studio we're in right
I don't
now?
want to know about your National Geographic days.
Love the National Geographic. Do you still have those at your house?
Yeah.
They're in the back of the hanger in the file next to your logbooks,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If you look
We
at previous
actually,
episodes,
I
he has
think-
5 logbooks, the airplane logbooks, and
Give me
50
this.
National Geographic.
Start at you got your.
Oh, here
all
we
right,
go.
all
All
right.
right, go ahead. Ask me a question.
All right. Can flights pass through the NSAs?
What is an NSA?
That's what I was wondering. What kind of questions do you have in this book?
Temporary flight restrictions, TFRs.
That's not NSAs.
Well, that's what it says.
NSAs.
Well, but
National security areas.
national security is probably
I
not
have
a good
to back
idea.
up a question.
What would be a national security area? I'm going to go with maybe a
I don't know where he
presidential
comes up with these
TFR.
questions.
It's in the book.
Who made this book up?
No, I'm saying probably a presidential TFR. Bad idea to go through one
All
of
right.
those.
So
There is Secret Service and people. I'm telling you, here's a little interesting thing.
Okay.
Presidential TFRs. We're getting ready to go into election season, right?
they'll be traveling.
They'll be traveling around. There'll be presidential TFRs. Yeah, they'll be right here on your iPad or whatever else you're using, or of course, if you call somebody. But there is no joke. There are a lot of people watching that airspace. That is unbelievable. People in Washington, D.C., Secret Service. There's somebody in the radar room. There's a super. I mean, it's.
There's a
it's
sniper
no
on the
joke.
tower?
No, there's no sniper on the tower.
Oh, okay. I'm
No,
making that up.
no.
Is that only in the movies?
Yeah. Bruce Willis lowered the ILS in Die Hard 2. And now how many people? Okay, so anyway, don't go in presidential TFRs, all right? All right, that's the message here.
All right. Now, this has been a problem with a lot of check rides.
Okay.
What happens if the PIC does not meet the experience requirements for the check ride?
Discontinue.
Very good. So, it's very important that you go through.
Don't bend the book. You can't sell that now.
Oh, man.
All right? Jeez.
Well, you haven't read it yet, so you're taking it with you.
I am. Hey! Everybody wanted. This is.
Hey, and we're going to get an autographed
No,
copy.
look, it's already autographed.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a free autographed copy of this book, right? Jeez, that's awesome. That's doctors sign it that badly.
You know.
Do you know that?
Is that like a,
Okay,
a script for aviation?
So tell me about your discontinuing. You said discontinue, right?
Yeah, discontinuance
Right.
is a major factor. If you don't go in with what's required, and this has happened to me, and here it is.
That happened to you?
So I signed a gentleman off for his private
Wasn't me.
pilot.
Thank God.
All right. And we did a night cross country. And we came out of Hodges Air Park. And anybody in the Savannah area knows that Hodges Air Park's about a mile or two south of Savannah. And it's about 5 or 6 south of Savannah International. Well, Hodges Air Park to Craig is 99 miles. Now, it was a faux pas that happened to me. And it was my fault, but I sent a student that didn't have the proper requirements because he was a mile short.
Right.
It happens.
How many students have you put forth on a check ride who did not pass? I mean, totally not passed.
Off the top of my head, I've had 2 or 3.
And what was the reason? Just the nervous, you think?
One was an oral and one was a flight, but there's only been just a few in the 20 years
Now,
that I've been a CFI.
I can tell you, I'm sure everybody's got their story. Their check ride, they're nervous. I mean,
Yeah,
were you
everybody's
nervous?
nervous.
Everybody's nervous to a certain degree. And I was flying, I was nervous. Hey, this isn't a gotcha check ride. I'm like, oh, it settled me right on down. It was great. So, anyway, hey, I just want to let everybody know that it's been a pleasure chatting with you guys. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. And
Remember,
hey, we're not done yet.
oh,
Captain Joel Weiner.
Aloha, Bob.
That's right. Hey, everybody, enjoy your rest of your day. Remember, a good pilot is
Always learning.
learning. All right.